my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
They're here.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
It's showtime.
Right, welcome everybody to another episode of VHS Strikes Back. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Phelps, and my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to the VHS Strikes Back, the show where we dust off the old video player and go on a nostalgic journey to look at the good and bad movies of yesteryear. Now, Chris, I'm a bit out of practice with this one. So today we're going to look at The Raiders of the Lost Ark. So tell me, what do you remember about this movie, first watching it?
I'll be honest with you, Dave, and to all our listeners, growing up, I absolutely hated this film. I hated the whole Indiana Jones series. I remember what? I know, I'm sorry, but what it comes down to me is, as a kid, and I'm really looking forward to talking about it, is I just saw Indiana Jones is a way of shoehorning in Harrison Ford as Han Solo in another series. That's all I could see it as. Obviously, this came out 81, so it was after or around about the time of Empire Strikes Back. And he was obviously some of his biggest powers as an actor at that point. He was absolutely, gold dust, Harrison Ford. And I just grew up like that. My cousin absolutely loved it. And I've mentioned in our previous podcast on, obviously, Comics in Motion podcast, and certainly on this one as well, that one of the things we used to do was going to my grandparents to watch movies. Now, when I mention the martial arts grandparents, that's my dad's mum and dad. When I mention things like Superman 2 and even this, it was sort of the thing that I used to watch at my mum's mum and dad. My grandparents on my mum's side, so we say that'd be easy, wouldn't it, Dave? Yep. Yeah, them as well. So they were the sort of ones where we would very rarely get videos out, but if we did, it was always taped off the TV. So I remember my cousin, who's 4 years older than me, absolutely idolising Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, and obviously growing up, he's 4 years older. I didn't really have an older brother, so obviously I got plenty of the abuse off him, so it's probably why I didn't like it, Dave, and I was always sticking to my Supermans and Star Warses growing up. But I've watched it, and then I've sort of like watched bits of it. I know the main bits in the film, but I've never genuinely sat down and watched it from start to finish. And this is exactly what I did this time. So from my point of view, it's more a hate relationship with Indiana Jones. And as I'm questioning it now at 40 years old, I'm sort of wondering, why did I hate it so much? Because there was no logic behind that thinking. It was just, I think maybe because it wasn't a superhero movie, it wasn't a gangster or sort of violent film as such. It is when we talk about it, but I remember it just being a bit of a damp squib, which I think I'm probably going to get called out on when we review this. But yeah, that's all I remember of this series. What about yourself, Dave?
Blimey, I am shocked, to be honest, because this is up there for me in terms of those movies that I remember as a kid. Now, I remember it was probably in 81, 82 time. I remember being on holiday in Spain. I think it was Salou. Only a wee young lad at the time, and being taken around by my mum and dad. And there was this bar which was advertising Raiders of the Lost Ark, dodgy as pirate copy of it. But the various bars, they used to have, little sandwich boards on the outside, and it'd say, like such and such a movie showing at this time. And so, to get people turning up. I remember turning up there one day when it was supposed to be on and the bar was closed. It was absolutely throwing it down with rain. And then the next day, we went and it was actually on. And I think we were the only ones in the bar watching it on this tiny little portable TV. So that was the very first time I watched it. And it's rare for me to remember the first time I watched anything, because things like Star Wars, the Superman movies, I don't really remember. I just remember them always being there. But for me, this one, I do remember that first time. And honestly, I remember right from the off just being transfixed by it. Now, I think I haven't watched this movie for a few years now, and in my memory, it's this kind of nice family movie, but there's some quite dark moments in it. And I think, the idea, there was no PG-13 back then, was there? So, it was a big chasm, I think, between the PG and the R-rated movies. And I think there are some things in here, whereas if it was rated today, it would definitely be on the PG-13 side, I think, just for a few things, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah. That's what I mean, Dave. I remember it being quite a vanilla romp of a film, and there's quite a few bits in it. I was quite shocked watching it this time. Like I say, I have no reference point. I've never seen some of these bits, but it's definitely at least a 15 or an R-rated one in certain points of this movie. And this has been played on sort of primetime TV in the UK. I've never really noticed whether they've cut any of it, Dave, so it'd be interesting what your take is on it.
Yeah, like I say, I think they just had a more liberal view of things then, and the ratings. I'm sure I've told you in the past, Jaws completely has destroyed any potential love I had for the sea and going in there, because I watched that as a young kid and just remember hiding behind the sofa. Like, that's not a metaphor or anything, actually hiding behind the sofa. And then be worried that Jaws might get me in my bed. So, things like that. You just think kids were not supposed to watch these movies. People aren't supposed to watch face-melting demons, and heads being blown up and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's a few things that are less family-friendly. But, no, I must admit, I did enjoy it going back and watching it again.
It's funny, actually, just quickly segueing off, Dave, that we've just recently been on holiday, as you know, and the listeners know, and there was a point there where we went out into the harbour on a catamaran to see some fireworks about 11 o'clock at night, and it wasn't a great experience. There was sick everywhere and everything. It was a disgrace of a journey. Don't ever do that, guys, whatever you do. Don't mix with alcohol. And honestly, it was not for me, Dave, I might add. It was just horrendous. But anyway, what you said about Joel, I am telling you the God's honest truth. Now, I'm a good swimmer. I'm sure you are. I love swimming in the sea. I always swim in the sea. But there's one thing that Jaws always taught me, Dave. And even now, at 40 years old, I was there watching the sea, and it was dead calm, and we're looking out, the moon's coming down. I remember Sam saying to me, God, doesn't that look good? And all I kept thinking was, what would you do if a massive shark just come and attacked us now? If someone fell overboard and got us, and then I'm thinking, what happens if something just comes underneath from this, like a sort of Aquaman situation? I'm thinking, but Jaws is always in my mind. And when I've been on Pedlos and you can't see the bottom of the sea and it's just black and you jump in, I am absolute coward. I am getting up faster than you've ever seen back onto that Pedalo when I jump in the sea. I'm a right shitbag, Dave. And that's mainly because of Jaws, honestly.
Well, at least you get in the sea, I guess. I might have to take your cowardness and one-up you a little bit here. I mean, I remember specifically, I was 19 years old. We went to Tenerife, myself and my girlfriend at the time. I can't remember if I've told this story before or not, but she had no fear of the sea whatsoever, and I'm a complete coward with it. But she wanted to go out on the pedalos, and she wanted to push it further and further and go out, and I'm just looking back at the beach, and it's getting further and further away, but we're still pedaling out, and I'm trying to be macho and trying not to let my guard drop and show how scared I am. And then it got to a point where she was like, okay, I think that's far enough. I mean, we were fucking miles, Chris, from the beach, and I'm thinking, I have got no chance. If a shark comes now, I am fucked. But it was at that point, I remember it as if it was yesterday. We were just bobbing in the sea, and I could hear the water slapping up against the side of the pedalo. And that was it. I broke then. I was just like, right, fuck this. We are going back. I can't take this anymore. So, yeah, I just can't stand it. And I'm sure we're not the only ones, but Jaws definitely left a massive scar on the psyches of a lot of people our age, I think.
That's bad news, that, Dave. I think it's so bad. These people our age hopefully going, you know what, I'm exactly the same. Maybe we should have a support group going.
Yeah. Maybe when we come to reviewing Jaws, we'll have a poll or something. You know, has this affected you going into the sea or not?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are loads of people our age that absolutely go, you know, scuba diving and everything and have no fear whatsoever, and hats off to them. But myself, massive coward, can't stand the sea.
Yeah. Good work, Dave. So shall we listen to our trailer, Dave?
Yeah, let's go for it.
For nearly 3,000 years, man has searched for the lost Ark of the Covenant.
The Bible speaks of the Ark leveling mountains and laying waste to entire regions. Not something to be taken lightly. No one knows its secrets.
Jones, do you realize what the Ark is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God.
An army which carries the Ark before it is invincible.
The Ark, if it is their Eternis, then it is something that man was not meant to disturb.
It is protected by forces beyond imagination. It is desired above all treasures on earth by those who are good, trust me, and those who are evil.
I'll tell you everything.
Yes, I know you will.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Let her go.
We have no time. If you still want the Ark, it has been loaded onto a truck for Cairo.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. A film from Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
Okay, so before we go into our story run-through, Chris, I just want to play this short promo by One Movie Punch. This is a great podcast that puts out a movie review every single day, and all the podcasts are quite short, and it's definitely on my list, and I really recommend to subscribe to this one. So here we go, One Movie Punch.
Hello there. Do you like movies but feel overwhelmed by the avalanche of titles available every week in the theaters and on streaming services? Do you struggle with justifying the increasing cost of movies at the theater or whether to pick up another streaming service? Well, I have a resource for you. One Movie Punch. Your movie review podcast for currently playing, newly streaming classic and cult movies. One movie per day, every day. We track the theaters, streaming services, and the occasional physical release to find the best movies currently available. We watch every film, then distill it into a short 3 to 5 minute review and publish a daily podcast. And now with year 2, we've gone spoiler-free for all movies within the last 3 years and bringing on a team of reviewers with brand new perspectives and selections. Want more information? Head over to www.onemoviepunch.com to subscribe to the daily podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at One Movie Punch and Facebook at www.facebook.com/OneMoviePunch. We'll see you there.
Now, we're set in 1936 and we meet archaeologist Indiana Jones, and he's looking to retrieve a golden idol from Peru, but he's avoiding the various booby traps, and he's confronted by his French rival, René Belloc, and he's flanked by a bunch of the indigenous people. Outnumbered, Indy makes his escape aboard the waiting water plane and finds that there's a bit of a snake, which we find out that Indy hates snakes right from the start there. So, Chris, what did you make to this opening scene?
I think, as I've alluded to, obviously, we were talking just a few minutes ago, I was quite surprised how violent this actually is. And yes, I do still feel that Indiana Jones is an extension of Han Solo. And obviously, it was written by George Lucas, Dave, as well, wasn't it? So originally it was supposed to be called Indiana Smith, but he decided against that. I don't think that was going to work. So to be fair...
It's funny, they go for the most, I guess, British common names, don't they? Indiana Smith? No, don't like it. What about a bit of Welsh? What about a bit of Indiana Jones, like? Oh, yeah. All right, Jones, that'll do.
Yeah. It's just weird,
fits
isn't it?
Perfectly.
It's so strange, but yes, I'll be honest, the first half of the film, the first third of the film, all in on it, Dave. I was really kicking myself. I'd messaged you, didn't I? Because unfortunately, I had to watch it in 2 stages, not because I didn't enjoy it. Usually, as you know, when I say to you all the time, if it's a bad one, it's 2, 3, 4 sittings, a la Tank Girl, which forever will be the absolute dog-awful film. But this, it just was purely because of the schedule and things I was doing. And yes, the action stuff's brilliant. And obviously, for me as a gamer, you can see the inspiration. You're obviously a gamer as well, Dave, of games like Lara Croft, Uncharted on the PlayStation. They are just straight Indiana Jones. And I think as well, one thing this film, for me, gets very right is the fact that it just steals every single score from Star Wars is I love. The gun noise, these little gun noises shouldn't be there. The way the plane starts up is the TIE fighter noise. It's so clever the way he threw him in there. But it's purely that I actually think, even to this day, the effects and that stand up really, really well, Dave, and the storytelling's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's good old John Williams again, isn't it? And, those iconic movie scores are so similar, aren't they? But just different enough that as soon as you hear them, for me, I mean, it puts hairs on my arms. For me, as much as the Superman theme does, the Indiana Jones theme does as well. That da-da-da-da. As soon as that kicks in, it's just like, oh, yeah, and it just gives that rousing sort of feeling that just washes over you. No, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And like I say, a lot of the sound effects and everything. And obviously, we were saying about Jaws having an influence. Like you say, it was written by George Lucas, this one. You had Spielberg directing it. So you can see all those various influences thrown in the pot there. But I mean, as much as I love and this opening iconic scene is just fantastic, isn't it? And I like the way it opens up with this action, and then it probably lulls a little bit when you get all the exposition about the Ark and stuff in a little bit. But apparently Lucas got, the idea from the old serials where, you'd watch it one week and the start of the episode starts off with the finish of last week's episode and the conclusion to that. So I thought that was a really neat idea on how to do it and everything. But of course, as a kid, there's a number of scenes and plot points in this movie where they're the only things that I remember as a kid. And then all of the talking, all of the quieter scenes, I just I'm almost watching those for the first time, because I think as a kid, I just used to switch off and start playing with my Star Wars figures or something. So it was interesting this time to actually pay attention to that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's interesting as well. And is this correct, Dave? Because I actually, I'll be honest, out of this whole series, I've saw the one with Sean Connery all the way through from the start to the end. I've seen that one before the third one. Was Temple of Doom actually a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, apparently. Now, right. Again, I haven't watched that for years, and again, it doesn't quite stack up, because he says in this, doesn't he, about all this hocus-pocus mumbo-jumbo stuff, and it's like, well, then if Temple of Doom is a prequel, and that you've just seen all that hocus pocus stuff in action. So yeah, it's a little bit strange, that one, isn't it? But I'm sure we'll come to looking at that at some point. But yeah, that Last Crusade, that's one a little bit the same for me as this one with you. I'm not sure I've sat down and watched that one all the way through. I've just seen all the bits of the movie in different sittings, and it's just never quite grabbed me like the first two do.
No, it's strange, and a little Easter egg, Dave, as well, which I know this anyway, because anyone who's listening, I absolutely love my favourite TV show of all time. I've mentioned it before, is a British TV show called Our Vida Zane Pet, which is about a load of... You know I love that, Dave. I watch it at least once a month, at least a couple of episodes. If not, I run through the first couple of series. I love that programme. It's something I've watched since I was about 7 years old. I probably shouldn't be watching it at 7 years old, but I absolutely love it. And one of the main characters is a guy called Bomber Pat Roach, who was a wrestler.
Yeah, I know where this is going, yeah.
Yeah, now, he's in this film twice, Dave, and he's actually in every single Indiana Jones film, or the first 3 anyway. Now, did you spot him at the start of the film?
I didn't. I thought you were going to go straight to the big beefcake, when we get the plane scene and he's sort of fighting with him, bare knuckle fighting with him then. That's the obvious one, isn't it? But I didn't spot him at the start here.
Indiana has a fight in a bar, doesn't he, with a load of sort of Arab-looking guys with long beards and that, and he has a real scrap with one of them who's bigger than him. A big burly guy. He's got a big beard on. I think I don't know if he's got a turban on, but he's got... His whole face is covered, but there's a couple of bits and that's him. He plays 2 parts in it, so he actually fights him twice in the film. And then I know he's in the second. He's in Temple of Doom, and he's also in the one with Sean Connery. I think Sean Connery, because Sean Connery actually fights Pat Roach in Never Say Never Again in the unauthorized James Bond one from 1984. So he's the guy who fights in the weights room when Sean Connery's wig's nearly falling off. But yeah, so just a bit of random trivia. And as a Alvidi Zane Pet fanboy, Dave, I was absolutely loving it because I knew that he was in this. But yeah, he is in it at the end when he fights him around the plane.
That's interesting, because there's another actor who I did know is in this. He plays 2 different parts. He's the guy who turns on Indy, so one of his hands in this very opening scene where they're looking for this golden idol.
Yep.
One of them sort of draws a gun on him, and he appears later with his pet monkey, his Nazi supporting Zeke Harlin pet monkey later on in the movie. So I knew he played 2 roles, but I didn't know RV the same pet bloke did as well.
Yeah, and also, Dave, we've got Doc Ock there as well. He double-crossed him, Alfred Molina.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Chris, there's something on this rewatch. There's a few little things which are a bit uncomfortable. And the fact that, everyone is basically is a white guy blacked up a bit.
Yeah.
Is one of those things. And yeah, he jumps off the screen, doesn't he? So this was Alfred Molina's first role in anything on the movie scene anyway. And yeah, you can see he's sort of got a bit of a tan on there, and he seems to swap between a bit of Spanish and Italian, because when he finds one of those poison darts initially, it's the way he says something like poison. 3 days. It's like that proper comedic kind of Italian accent instead of Spanish. And he does sound a bit more Spanish later on, but no, it was so obvious. And I was just thinking, oh, yeah, I forgot about this sort of casual racism.
Yeah, and that's something you get in these films, unfortunately, don't you, from all them years ago. It's not done on purpose. It's just there, isn't it, unfortunately. It's like a subconscious thing. The bad guys always have that sort of descent, aren't they, in these films, which is, that's definitely not true. But again, Dave, I am going to bust a bit of a myth. I don't know if I've ever seen this. As I mentioned, my sort of hatred of Indiana Jones as such, there is a movement online, Dave. Now, have you seen the YouTube video where obviously George Lucas created Star Wars, and we've got the whole universe. We've got the Rise of the Skywalker coming out this year and all that. And obviously D23's been on recently, so we've got to see a bit of a trailer. Now, I'm not saying that George Lucas didn't write the story to Indiana Jones, but have you seen the film that absolutely Indiana Jones just ripped off scene by scene? Or Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh, Dave, there's a comparison video. I stumbled across it about 6-7 months ago, just purely by... I wasn't putting in Indiana Jones' shit or anything like that. I was just putting... It's just one of them little thumbnails that comes up, and it was all about George Lucas ripping off some film from like the 40s or 50s, Dave. It's not even like a slight comparison. It's an absolute unbelievable rip-off. I don't know.
Really?
We'll put it this way. Ed Sheeran gets absolutely ripped on it for ripping loads of songs off different people. And then there's a certain way in certain songs you go, oh, yeah, he's took that. I know there's a Marvin Gaye song and there's some Rolling Stones songs and things like that. And there's been a few things said about Ed Sheeran, even though it's his original stuff. Dave, this is beyond Ed Sheeran. This is purely an absolute... it's just like a remake, basically.
All right. I've never seen that, to be honest. But, I mean, he said he'd taken it from the original 1930s and 40s serials. But I'm assuming the movie doesn't go back quite that far. No,
I don't think it is. I know there's a Humphrey Bogart film he's based him on because he wanted Indiana to be a bit of an alcoholic, a bit more darker, didn't he? But they decided to go against that. But yeah, I mean, like I say, that's just something I've seen myself. It's purely not me trying to hunt something out in a negative way. I genuinely think it's a great start to the film. The iconic bits, obviously, you've got the whip. You've got the famous bit for me, Indiana Jones, is the guy who's got the massive machete sword and he's doing all them moves and Indiana just goes, oh, fuck this, and just shoots him. And that'll always be something iconic.
So do you know the story behind that?
No.
I mean, actually, let's park that one for a minute, but there's a specific reason that came to be, and it all came from Harrison Ford. But, I mean, the iconic bit with the boulder, you know, again, that's just been replayed over and over that, hasn't it? And I think this opening bit is great. And like I say, the next bit is where it lulls a bit for me as a kid, but I actually found quite interesting on this rewatch where you get you get the US government coming in and telling him that the Nazis are trying to find Indy's mentor, this Abner Ravenwood. And he's an expert, a leading expert in the ancient city of Tanis. And, you know, from that, Jones deduces that, well, they're obviously looking for the Ark. And, you know, they basically, I don't know if they hire him. They must hire him, I guess, to go off. And that's where he goes off to find Marion. And this is another point where, you know, something resonated with me that had always kind of been there, but as an adult, and especially with daughters, it got a lot more wrong than I remember it being as a kid. Now, do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
Okay, so there's a bit of dialogue. So when he gets to Marion, and we have that kind of back and forth. She's having a drinking contest with one of the he's an Australian climber according to IMDb.
Yeah.
And you know, she drinks him under the table. You can see she can hold her own up there. And she says about, you know, Indiana Jones, I knew you'd walk into my bar, and, you know, 10 years ago it was obvious they had some kind of relationship. Now, it was that statement when they were going on about how the breakup happened and everything. Marion says, I was a child. Now, it always struck me as being slightly off, and I didn't know why, but it was the fact that she used the word child instead of kid. You know, so like, you know, if me and you have talked, I'm sure, in the past about doing stupid things when we were kids, or I was a kid, so, you know, I was just stupid then. But it was the fact that she said child made it feel more... It made it feel younger. And when I started to look into this, apparently George Lucas wanted to make her much younger. So they'd obviously split up this relationship 10 years ago. He wanted to make her anything from like 21 to 25, like now, which would make her somewhere between 11 and 15 when they had that relationship, when Indiana was in his mid-20s.
Well,
and it's like,
yeah, that's not.
Fuck me. Yeah. Now, fortunately, so you can go online and you can see there's like transcripts of these brainstorming sessions, and Lucas is saying, oh yeah, well, you know, if she gets to like 16, 17, it's not interesting anymore. I'm like, fucking hell, especially with what we know about now, about, you know, some of these personalities coming out and whatever. I was like, fucking hell. And it always struck me as a bit off that she used that word child. But fortunately, I mean, they don't really, it's not in your face. in the movie, so I think they handle it quite well. But yeah, bit odd, that, isn't it?
It's a bit fucking
nice
wrong,
family
Dave.
movie.
Yeah, it's a bit wrong.
It's very, very fucking wrong, and yeah, I know. Yeah, we should probably move off from that, but it was one of those, like I say, as a kid, it just, that use of the word just jumped out at me, and it always struck me as off. And obviously, you know, you can go online, lots of other people have done that research and looked into it as well, and so yeah, different times.
Very good. Yeah, let's move quickly on from that, Dave. But, I agree. I think what I found with the film as we get to the middle section is the first part, as you said, very strong, really believable, really enjoying Harrison Ford. Sort of questioning myself, thinking, you've really give this film a hammering over the years in your head more than from actually watching it, which obviously is a bit of a prejudice, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But the middle bit I didn't enjoy, and there was loads of times from the middle to the end where I didn't it's not a bad film, but there was so many times where he could have got away, she could have got away, something could have happened to, you know, the amount of times he got captured by the Nazis and the guards and stuff, I was getting sick of it towards the end, like, for God's sake. And that
He's
girl...
got, like, look superpowers, hasn't he?
Oh, it's ridiculous, because I know, and you've probably read this yourself, it was supposed to be James Bond without all the hardware, and I'm quoting George Lucas now, that was the quote, and I didn't get that, I just got it as it was, you know, I liked Romance in the Stone, which came out a few years later. That is a ridiculous sort of slapstick film with Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas, and this is up there as that, and there's some wisecracking, he is in full-on Han Solo mode, without a doubt, and I did think... with the girl at the end when she got on the plane and she was firing at all the Nazis and all the guys who kept him captive, that was very reminiscent of Star Wars with Luke and him in the Millennium Falcon. I thought that was a bit of a nod there. And am I wrong in thinking, I might be dreaming this, Dave, but was it not the same sort of cockpit they used for this scene? I'm sure I've heard that somewhere. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
I could be well off with that. But yeah, the middle bit. So you're getting the whole backstory of what they're doing, why they want him to go back, don't they, and get all this with, you know, he's back at his uni and everything and all this. And it just, I don't know, there's loads of action sequences. It's great, the action stuff. And I've got to give Harrison Ford a lot of pluses because he does do quite a lot of stunts, Dave. I'm not saying he does all of them, but there's quite a few where you cannot hide from the fact that is him when he's attached to like the side of the truck and things like that. I've got to give him credit for that. But again, Dave, let's lead on to, as you mentioned before, let's talk about the most iconic bit. So what have you got on that? Because I have no point of reference on that whole scene.
So Marion gets captured, doesn't she, when they're in Cairo, because they know that, you know, the Ark is somewhere around there. And again, we get the Welsh actor, what's his name, John Rhys-Davies, you know, playing an Egyptian. But yeah, so Marion gets captured, ratted out by the Nazi monkey, and Indy's sort of going through, he's fighting all these various local hands helping out the Nazis, and then you get to the sword guy, and again it's the problem is it's replayed so many times on like trailers and stuff like that, isn't it? It's not really a surprise anymore. But so apparently this guy had been training for months to do this scene, and basically everyone on the set got ill when they were filming it in Tunisia, apart from Steven Spielberg, who'd shipped himself a bunch of SpaghettiOs and basically lived off that. So he was the one not ill. And Harrison Ford on this shooting day was saying, look, you've got me for an hour and that's it. That's all I can do. So they had this whole thing, they had this whole fight sequence planned out with this guy. And it was Harrison Ford in the end. He said, why don't I just shoot him? And so it was like, oh yeah, that works. And, you know, apparently years later, you know, Harrison Ford's basically said, oh, I feel a bit bad for that guy. You know, I you know, he'd been training all this time and, you know, I've just stolen his limelight. And it's like, well, No, it's one of the most iconic scenes in film. You know, it's just so unexpected at the time, and you know, so been replicated and homaged to so many times since. So I just thought it was one of those great little accidental stories that creates this moment of magic.
And Dave, and I know them sort of things. I'm certainly not a stuntman. The amount of times, as I've mentioned before, I've bigged myself up to my family. You're going to see me on TV today, on a TV show, or, you know, when I've done my extra work and I've done little walk-on spots, and you literally see a fucking hand or the back of my head. You don't even see me in shot, Dave. There's been a couple of silhouettes on Coronation Street, so that guy must have been absolutely devastated. His big moment, and also it could have elevated the guy's career, really, because he's a fantastic stuntman. You just don't know, do you? But yeah, iconic, and I know in a lot of polls it's always in the top 10, if not top 5 iconic moment in movies, Dave. So it's something I always remember. Like I say, someone who's never really watched it, but I think, you know, we get a lull and then it starts building up again towards the end of the movie. I think it's like, because it lost me in the middle, Dave. I wasn't clock watching by any stretch of the imagination, and I know I shouldn't be saying this, but review-wise, it's at like 9 out of 10 on everything. That Rotten Tomatoes, it's on 95 out of 100, 9.18 on Metacritic and stuff like that. It's unbelievable, but it's one of these. Sorry, user reviews 9.18. Let me say that again. User reviews 9.18, which I think of everything we've ever reviewed across both podcasts, is probably the highest reviewed property by the audience, Dave, which is fantastic. 85 Metacritic, but it just lost me then. I think it could be an age thing. We've mentioned it loads of times when we go back and watch some of these properties. I did say to you when I was watching it and text you, I think this might be something that I've gone back watching and I'm going to regret because I absolutely love it. But I didn't. I think I was at the stage where I was about 40 minutes in when I messaged you, and it falls off for me, become a bit too predictable. I like a lot of the stunts, but I didn't like that girl who was his sort of, you know, the woman interest in there. Marion. I wasn't buying into. I wasn't buying into the French guy. And obviously the Nazis and that guy who came in, because I know there's been references to the Nazi guy with the black suit on, and that was sort of like a bit of a Darth Vader homage, wasn't there? He had a full... And I know in Hello, Hello, the old TV show from the UK, a comedy, they all wore them black leather jackets and the hat and the round glasses. I think it must have been a bit of a piss take, but it just didn't drag me back in. There was enough stuff to believe it, but I just was like, no, it's not getting me how I thought it would, to be honest.
I think the difference is, though, I mean, you've come into this, you've said you never actually liked it.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably, you know, why it's not grabbing you this time, because it never really has done. But I think, you know, this whole movie is like a collection of set pieces with a period of lulls in between. Like, you remember the bit at the start with the rolling boulder and stuff like that. You remember the bit with the snakes. You know, you remember the bit with the plane where he's fighting the big wrestler dude from I'll Be the Same Pet. You know, you remember, and then the scene at the end where they open up the Ark. You remember all those bits, but there are periods of lulls where the movie's really quiet. And I think, remember, this was released in 1981. I think movies were a little bit more like that, where you did have a lot of quieter moments in it. And so I feel, I guess I felt that lull as well, but I guess I'm more forgiving than you.
Yeah, no,
when it comes to this one.
Exactly. Sorry, Dave, to cut you off. I genuinely, I didn't go into it negative at all. I mean, awards-wise, if you're looking at them, it got 4 Oscars, Dave, and it was nominated in 3 or 4 other categories. So out of 8, it got 4, which is phenomenal. It got Hugo Awards, Saturn Awards. It was absolutely swept the board. It was the highest grossing film of 1981 by a mile. It made $384 million, right? And if you actually use the inflation bracket, it's still in the top 25 movies of all time, Dave. So you can be wrong on something. I think, like you say, maybe I've gone into it just expecting to pick on the negatives. I've tried not to. Like I say, I was pleasantly surprised, but maybe because there's been so many films that have copied it since, and this was the original, maybe that's why, because I've seen it before. That could have been one of the reasons, Dave. I'm not sure, but it certainly because I've not seen stuff like, you've got, what's the one that was on a few years ago? You had the one with Nicolas Cage, didn't you? And you've had the one with Brandon, what's he called? Him out of the Doom Patrol. He was in an event. Is it Treasure?
Brendan Fraser?
Yeah, Brendan Fraser. He was in a Treasure one. There was a few films a bit like Indiana Jones.
Oh, like The Mummy.
Yeah, that's and they don't interest me. It's not my genre of film, so I've never really watched them. I mean, I did like Jumanji, and I know that's going down that route, and the second one's out this year. But yeah, it just didn't really get me. I'd like to say some great action sequences at the end are fantastic, without a doubt, but I just wasn't invested, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I did feel the lulls, but just loved all of those various set pieces. And I think for me, you've got like I say, we've discussed the scripting and stuff with Lucas and working with Spielberg and that, but I think for me, you put anyone else in that role other than Harrison Ford at that time, and I don't think it works as well.
No,
I think this is absolutely Harrison Ford in his prime and being interested in the role and absolutely killing it. I think he was late 30s in this role at the time, but like I say, hats off to him. He was a tasty looking dish back then, and just absolutely charming every time he was on the screen, I felt.
Yeah, I do think when he had the scenes with Marion and they were getting a bit up close and personal, it was just literally beat for beat the same score that he used when Han Solo talks to Princess Leia, the love bit.
Yeah.
There was literally a couple of key changes in there, a couple of notes extra, but John Williams was just obviously thought, oh, fuck it, I'm on a winner with Star Wars, I might as well just throw
lunch
this in.
is coming up.
Yeah.
I'll put this one out.
Yeah, I missed my deadline.
That'll do.
Yeah, George Lucas on the phone. Have you done that music for me? Yeah. Oh yeah. Give us 10 minutes. Yeah. Oh, this is it. Yeah. It just there wasn't much difference between them. But again, I think I did like the scene, and this is where it gets a bit gruesome, Dave. You get the scene at the end where, obviously, as I mentioned, he fights Pat Roach in the Nazi camp there on the archaeology thing, and he can't beat him in a fight, and she's in the plane spinning it round and firing at people, and he gets decapitated. You see all the blood. You don't see, obviously him getting decapitated, and then you've got the bit where they're all together, aren't they? The Nazis and everything in that room, and that guy who's supposed to be, I think, Darth Vader, his head gets melted, and I'm like, wow, this is not what I remember. It would be some very, very good effects that still hold up even to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved the bit with the snakes, to be honest. When they initially find the Ark, and obviously Belloc comes as he does and just nicks it, so Indy does all the heavy lifting, and then Belloc just comes at the right time and then just nicks it. I thought some of that was pretty damn gruesome. When Marion's going through and she's got all these screaming skeletons like falling on top of her and whatever. But I think gruesome moments that stick in my mind are like in that bar scene. So in Marion's bar, when Indy and her first meet up, you've got this gunfight going on, but you get this guy who's shot straight between the eyes, pretty much.
Yeah,
and all right, the effects it's very much like 70s, 80s kind of blood, isn't it, down his face? But he's shot straight through the head, and things like that. Like you say, the German wrestler, big dude, he just gets completely wiped out by the aeroplane propeller, and you're like, bloody hell, what? Why do people think back in the 80s that this was just a PG, So, yeah, it was a bit more gruesome than I guess I'd kind of remembered it being. And like you say, the old face melting thing. And then Belloc, when they're doing the ceremony to open up the Ark, and I still never really understood, how does Indy know to close your eyes? It's like the, if you were scared of the dark, again, another, just putting it out there about how much of a coward I am about just about everything, but as well as being afraid of sharks attacking me in my bed, just generally being afraid of the dark when you were a kid, and you think, right, a bit of duvet, there's nothing that protects you like a bit of duvet, so I'm going to hide under here. So it's like that, isn't it? Just close your eyes and you'll be all right. I don't know how that works, but Belloc's head just completely explodes.
Yeah.
It's like, hang about. If that was in a Tarantino movie or something, that'd be a straight R rating, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, to be fair. Dave, what do you mean when you were a kid? If I think I've seen a bit of a silhouette or a ghost or a creak, I'm straight under the quilt. Don't you worry about that. That'll protect you against anything.
These magically treated quilts that protect us from demons and everything.
Yeah, they do, Dave. Don't say that. Don't ruin it now. So, Dave, is there anything you picked up towards the end? I know I've been a bit critical there, but is there anything stand out before we go into our review?
No, again, I thought it was an interesting idea. You know, you've got the Nazis obviously being obsessed with the occult and, you know, trying to chase down the Ark and perform this Jewish ceremony. It just all seemed to, again, there were subtext there that as a kid watching it, I was just like, you know, wanting to get from action scene to action scene. But there were some quite clever things. And even though it is, you know, apart from the gruesome bits, you know, which may be a little bit much if you were remaking that today. But apart from that, you know, there is some good story in this as well, I think. One of the other things that I have seen, and this is where I thought you might be going before, is that there are theories out there that actually Indiana Jones did not influence this Raiders of the Ark. that might be a different one. I do remember again in the late 90s walked into this independent video store and I just saw one of these dodgier movies, shall we say that, and it was just called Indiana Jones. And it always sticks in my mind. I'm just like, that is the best parody name I could ever think.
Are we reviewing that one, Dave? What?
No, I'm not sure. But anyway, moving swiftly on from that. So, because he didn't really influence that much. You know, the Nazis got the Ark in the end. At the beginning, you know, he got the golden idol, but he lost it to Belloc. So what did he actually influence in the story? Not a lot. So I'm sure there'd be, you know, it's the old butterfly effect, isn't it? I'm sure if there was a parallel universe, it would unfold slightly differently, but he doesn't really change that much because the Nazis would have still opened the Ark without Indiana Jones. He just wouldn't have been there and wouldn't have been putting Marion in danger. And they'd have all been, you know, gruesomely torched or melted to death. So, yeah, there you go. Utterly pointless movie. So.
Let's get into our review then, Dave.
Let's go.
Right, Dave, I think I will go first if that's okay, because...
Yeah.
It's something that...
Because you're going to shit all over it.
How dare you, David? How dare you? No, I think as a film, as something I haven't watched, I am a bit cross with myself because it's something I should have watched a long time ago. I do think I may have had a different opinion. I know when we reviewed Weird Science and Comics in Motion, I absolutely threw it under the bus. And I know we've just done Ferris Bueller, which I was really gutted with. And I did get called out, actually, by one of our listeners, Phil, who was devastated me for calling Ferris Bueller. And I said, look, I was the biggest Ferris Bueller fanboy ever, and I was devoed when I watched it this time. But anyway, I digress. I should have probably watched this properly, not just watched snippets of it and been sort of gritting my teeth every time it come on because we were forced to watch it and things like that. It's aged good, and it's a good film. It's just, unfortunately, even though this was the original, I've seen it before in so many different films, and I wasn't buying it for the originality, unfortunately. And I think I've lost something there, Dave, sincerely, that maybe have been held more in my heart. And obviously, my Han Solo prejudice didn't help Harrison Ford one bit. He'll always be Han Solo ever in any film for me. But again, great fight sequences, great set pieces. I think some of the practical effects are fantastic. Full props to Harrison Ford. He fully gets involved in a lot of the sequences there, whether he's attached to a truck, at the front of that truck, it's definitely him. I know you can see at some point he's got some sort of weight belt on or something holding him in, but he's definitely him, or a harness. You've got to give him credit for that. He's fantastic. It's not anything dodgy where you see the back of his stunt double's head. It's him. And I think he carries the film for me. Absolutely fantastic in it. So it isn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's certainly not the best. So I'm sending it straight in the middle, Dave, and I'm sending it to Hill Valley.
Sacrilege.
Sorry. What about yourself, Dave?
You know, you're saying about the special effects. We mentioned old Alfred Molina there right at the start. I think there are just a few things which look a bit off. Obviously, this was in 81, so, you know, you've got to forgive some of the animation effects. But, you know, we'd seen Star Wars in 77, and I think the effects in that were better. But, you know, when Alfred Molina gets skewered by all those spikes when he tries to run off with the golden idol, it just looks so ridiculous to me. It looks absolutely nothing like him, and it just looks like one of those, you know, waxwork things that you see in Madame Tussauds where they've had about 5 minutes to put it together. You know, it just looks rubbish. Or not even Madame Tussauds, but, you know, one of the, if you go to, I don't know, the Hellfire caves down near High Wycombe, and they've just got these crappy paper mache dolls and things. It's just little things like that just jump out and go, ooh, they didn't have a lot of time to spend on that. But I'm going to say, you know, I absolutely loved this as a kid. It has the same effect on me. There's a lot I'm going to say about, obviously, Harrison Ford's performance. Absolutely fantastic. I can't think of many other actors who would pull that off. But I think the John Williams score as well, as much as he's ripping off his own work, and, you know, again, there's theories that it all ties back to War of the Worlds. If you listen to that, I think it's War of the Worlds. It all sounds very similar to that. You know, it's just little changes here and there make it iconically either Star Wars, Superman, or Raiders of the Lost Ark. But it absolutely does give me those, you know, hairs standing up on my arms kind of moments. So there were a few things that I noticed this time, you know, watching it in 2019 that I never noticed before, like I called out at the beginning, the fact that it's basically all white guys, and they've just got a bit of the tanning on. You know, in that bar scene where Marion's there's a guy, and he's obviously made to look Mongolian or something, but his eyelids are just so blatantly fake. It's like, oh, crikey, that's wrong. Why not just cast someone like that? You know, I'm sure there are reasons for it, apart from casual racism, but I just can't think of any. So, and also the stuff about Marion, about where did this relationship actually start? You know, again, I can't fully write that off as just being, oh, it was the 80s, they were all a bit Jimmy Savile back then. You know, it's just like, no, that's fucking wrong at any time. And George Lucas, even knowing that it's very wrong, but just saying, oh, well, you know, if she's 16 or 17, it's not interesting anymore. Little things like that just switch me off a bit from the movie. But I can't get away from the fact that it's just a lot of fun. And like I say, it does lull a bit for me, you know, not as much as it did as a kid, but these moments in between these action scenes and these iconic scenes, it does lull. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it is just a great, fun movie. And so I've ummed and ahed about this because I'm kind of mentally scoring it down for those points that I've raised before. I've mentioned before, but I'm still going to send this to the top. I'm still going to send it to Cloud City because I just think for a 1981 movie, this does stand up really well. And like I say, even though it's this kind of fun action-adventure kind of romp, there is a kind of serious story behind it as well, and using some real-world themes in it. And so I just think, you know, it's just absolutely iconic movie, had a massive impact on cinema. Since then, like I say, all the various scenes have been homaged, and, you know, you've had all these spin-off games, these spin-off movies and stuff. But, you know, even just going back to the original, I think it's still a great movie.
Good stuff, Dave. I think that's a great explanation and review as well, so fantastic. So if you want to get in contact with the show, guys, on Twitter at VHS Strikes Back, or if you want to email the show, the VHS Strikes Back at gmail.com. And myself and Dave will be happy to listen to any suggestions that you'd like us to review. And also, we do have another podcast, guys, which is based on comic book movies, TV shows. That's Comics in Motion. If you want to follow us, if you want to listen to our back catalogue of episodes, get onto your podcast catching app and search Comics in Motion. And there's 87 episodes up there now, which is fantastic. Now, Dave, I didn't forget this week. I was kindly just left it over.
I thought, he's done me this time proper. Stitched up like a kipper this time.
Seeing as though he was one of your favourite films, Dave, and I think that's probably one of your best ones where you sent to Cloud City. What have you got to take us out with today, please?
Well, Chris, I thought I'd leave you with a line. You know, both of us being in our prime years, probably, would you say? Where we've well matured, I think. In response to Marion saying, "You're not the man I knew 10 years ago," Indy responds, "It's not the years, honey. It's the mileage."
That's it, man. It's game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?
We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
I'll be back.
That's odd.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Wax on, wax off.
Get to the chopper!
One ring to go.
All right. Ding, ding.
Bust you up. Go for it.
Well, here we go. Ain't so bad. Ain't so bad. Ain't so bad. Come on. Come on, ain't so bad. Ain't nothing. Come on. You must be crazy or something. I'm crazy. You just a stupid. Yeah, maybe you crazy. I ain't breathing heavy. He's a fool. He's stupid. I've seen you in 6 months.
I must break